thank you all for joining us. I know we have some folks here on Zoom. We have some folks watching on YouTube. Both are fine. This will be saved for later viewing on our YouTube channel, both the presentation and the Q&A at the end. And this is kind of a fun presentation for me because I get to tell you all about what we're planning to do for the new OWL Center. Some of you have heard some of this. This is updated compared to what you've heard in the past, if you've heard some of this presentation before. And it's kind of exciting to see things starting to come together. So thanks to all of you who are helping to make this happen, because I know many of you watching are already donors and are supporting the project. And many of you are also volunteers and have helped in all different kinds of ways. This is really a Team OWL project. It takes an enormous number of people and a whole lot of support to make this all happen to the point that we're at and to move forward with this. So thank you for being interested in this and helping support it and helping to make it happen. So kind of the planning started a little bit back in 2008 and 2009 when I got a Bush Leadership Fellowship to kind of give me a better background to start an International OWL Center, because I was working with the Houston Nature Center before. My background is in biology, and there's a whole lot of other stuff you need to know to do stuff like this. So I was able to do other coursework, like get a mini MBA in nonprofit management, take courses in festival and event management, wild raptor field techniques, captive raptor management, and then visit facilities all across the US and the UK. So that's kind of where some of the initial planning started. Oh, and a few details about what we've got going on here. For those of you who are watching in Zoom, we've got the chat disabled. And so ask any questions that you have in the Q&A, and we'll address those at the end. Those of you who are watching in YouTube, the chat, of course, is running. Please keep it on topic. We have chat room moderators there. They have highlighted names, and I'm not sure who's going to be there versus other locations, but if you see Owly Keep or Tristan, he's from the Scottish OWL Center and can answer all kinds of OWL questions, as can a lot of our moderators. And if you see Rob W. hanging out there, he's actually one of our board members as well as a chat room moderator, so he can answer some of those types of questions also. But those questions from YouTube, Tristan will funnel over to me, and I'll answer those at the end of the presentation also. What else am I remembering to say? I think I got it all. So let's start with the presentation. I'm glad I tested this. I haven't done a webinar for a while, and YouTube has changed webinar settings since then, so bear with me a little bit. All right. So Project Hoot is what we're calling our capital campaign to raise the funds for our new International OWL Center. So this is our capital campaign logo. And most of you probably already know some of this, maybe not all of it, but I'm just going to go through some background so everybody's on the same page. So who are we at the International OWL Center? We are the only all-OWL education center in the United States. So the OWL Research Institute is focused on research. They're out in Montana. The OWL Foundation in Vineland, Ontario is focused on rehab. So we're the one that's focused on just education with a little bit of research on the side. Our mission is to make the world a better place for owls through education and research. So education is kind of our primary venue, but we do research also. And we do that through on-site programs, off-site programs, as well as online programs, which help us reach a much bigger audience. And our goal is to empower people to live owl-friendly lives, because we humans are the biggest problem for owls, which also means we're the biggest solution if we know how we're having impacts on owls. So that's kind of one of our goals with our programming. And then we do original research, and we try and engage community scientists whenever possible, such as with our Great Horned Owl vocal study and the folks working in our Iris the Great Horned Owl chat room. So questions we get all the time. Why is the International Owl Center in Houston, Minnesota? So if you haven't been here, Houston, Minnesota is a sprawling metropolis of less than 1,000 people, upper 900s, somewhere in there. So why here? Why would you put one here? And the answer is we didn't plan to start an owl center. It all started with Alice, the great horned owl. She's a non-releasable owl I got from the Raptor Education Group back in 1998. This photo was actually from 1998, 26 years ago, to use in educational programs to lead up to opening the Houston Nature Center in Houston. And once the Nature Center opened, I was very cognizant the only reason we had a nature center in a town this small was to bring people to town. So it was environmental education, but tourism also. So those were kind of a twin focus that we had. So I was trying to figure out how do you put those two things together? Well, Alice was the star of the show. The center wasn't built until 2001. So Alice is what everybody knew because we started doing programs with her in 1998. And I thought, well, let's do a hatch day party for her. She hatched somewhere the end of winter. There's nothing going on that time of year around here, and everybody likes Alice. So we'll call it the Festival of Owls and we'll celebrate her hatch day. And the first year, this isn't the first year, the first year, 300 people showed up the last weekend in February. And we thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So we kept doing it and built on it. And within a few years, we had people flying here from Alabama, California, New York. And I'm scratching my head going, why are you coming to Houston, Minnesota in early March for Alice's Hatch Day party? And that's when we realized there was nobody else in North America doing anything like it. And if you hear hooting in the background, that's Alice because she doesn't like other people in her space and she can hear me talking to somebody else, and how dare I do that? So anyway, you may have Alice in the background if the microphone is that sensitive. Anyway, as this festival grew, when we started getting more than 1,000 people coming, that's like more than the population of our town. Then I started thinking, okay, there's a wolf center, there's a bear center, there's an eagle center, there's a crane center, but there's no all owl education center in the US. So that's when we got the idea of doing an owl center in Houston. So it's been a lot of development over a lot of years, but Alice is the reason we have an owl center in Houston, Minnesota. The other question we get is, how are you international? I mean, we're in a little tiny town in a rural area. How the heck are we international? Well, several ways, actually. So one of the things that we started literally the very first year of the Owl Festival is we had kids art involved in it. And now this art contest has grown from a local coloring contest to a highly competitive international competition. So this year we got 3,920 entries from 33 different countries. In a single year, we've had entries from as many as, I think, 49 different countries. So most of our entries are foreign. This year we had an increase. We had 10% of our entries come from the United States. So it's mostly a foreign competition. We present the World Owl Hall of Fame Awards. We had speakers with the festivals early on, keynote speakers, and I realized some of these people really have dedicated their lives to owls. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could give them public recognition for doing that? So we developed the World Owl Hall of Fame. And although we solicit the nominations, we don't do the judging. We have owl experts from around the world do the judging, so they're literally judged by their peers. But we get to present the awards. So we have all the top owl people from all over the world come to Little Houston, Minnesota for our owl festival to get their awards and speak. So we have all these top owl speakers every year. In this photo, we've got Ruar Solheim from Norway, Raju Akaria from Nepal, Hein Bloom from the Netherlands. So it's normal to have people here from all over the world. And we started the Virtual Owl Expert Speaker Series when COVID shut us and the rest of the planet down. And that reached, I think the first year we had at least 50 countries that had logged in to watch presentations. So that's a way that we're really reaching the whole planet. In-house, we have an Owls Through the Ages presentation we do as part of our owl program repertoire, and that focuses on owls in different cultures around the world throughout history. And we get visitors from all over the world. Just yesterday, I think we had somebody from Argentina. I mean, it's probably every week or two we have somebody from a foreign country, so that's fairly normal for us also. What have we accomplished? So direct education, since we've been the OWL Center, so that's since 2015, we've directly educated over 130,000 people. So for those of you from Minnesota, that includes a large number of libraries throughout the Selco system. So that's a system of libraries in the, I think about 11 counties in southeastern Minnesota. So that's up to, an hour and a half, 2 hours away that we're driving to do programs. A lot of schools within about 50 miles, both us going to the schools and the schools coming to the OWL Center. And then the webinars have been a big thing for us. And those allow us to reach groups all across North America and the world. So I've done lots of programs for Audubon groups in California, doing one for a Delaware book club in December, doing one for a Danish soccer club with an owl mascot in December also. So it just allows us to do programs all over the planet. One of the other fun things that happened along the way is got great horned owls protected under Minnesota state law. Bizarrely, when I got Alice, I couldn't get a state permit because they were on Minnesota's unprotected list, which is bizarre because they're federally protected. So worked with Representative Ray Cox out of Northfield in I think 2003 to 2005 to make that a reality. So Alice actually got the very first great horned owl permit issued in the state of Minnesota. And part of the research that we've done, we've documented the complete vocal repertoire of the great horned owl. It took me about 20 years before I was pretty confident we've got the whole repertoire. And that the great horned owl vocal research has branched off into research on barn owls, which kind of are supposed to be extra limital and not really here. But they are showing up in Minnesota and Wisconsin these days. And it turns out passive acoustic monitoring has been one of the best ways to detect them. And we try and help others, not just ourselves, but we are trying to help others also. One thing we do, because the nearest rehabber in Minnesota is in St. Paul, so that's 2.5 hours away, people call us and say, oh my gosh, I found an injured owl or eagle or hawk or whatever. Just like today, this morning, we had an call about an injured barred owl. Yesterday morning, we had a call about an injured screech owl. And depending on where they are, we can either direct people to the closest rehabber if they're in another state, or these were local ones so that we could collect them and work with our network of volunteers. We have a few dozen volunteers we work with to get those birds transported to where they need to go. We get calls and emails from all over the world. Some of the bizarre ones are a short-eared owl that landed on a super yacht a few days off the coast of Florida. People who have pet owls in Indonesia that are sick. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do there. So we consult with about 80 calls a year to help the birds get the care that they need. We don't do the rehab ourselves. I should clarify that. We just help them get to where they need to go. We do free neighbor weekends for people in the adjacent counties, so Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa during the winter when we don't have as much visitation, and it gives the local people something to do. But we also do a free open house for everybody in August for International Owl Awareness Day, which is in our current facility kind of insane for the number of people we get. And we do try and help out our sister festival in Nepal with funding. Because in Nepal, people aren't going to pay to go to an owl festival, and they're always out in remote areas, so the volunteers have to get bussed out there, put up in lodging and food provided. So we help with funding for the Nepal Owl Festival for multiple years. And when the war broke out in Ukraine, we had all this kids art from all over the world. So we pulled out some from Ukraine, shared it online, and said, we really hope these young kids are doing okay. And people were so touched by that, they asked if they could buy it. And so many people asked, we thought, well, let's auction it and we'll give all the proceeds to UNICEF to give to help kids in Ukraine. And that went insanely well. The first auction of 59 pieces of art brought in $100,000. So we kept doing it till we got rid of about 300 pieces of art and raised almost $250,000 that we sent over to help those kids. So we were pretty proud that we were in a position we could help. Now, why do we need a new facility? If you've been to the Owl Center on a busy day, you probably have a pretty good idea of why we need a new facility, but there's probably a few things you don't know also. So the facility that we're in is just rented. We don't own it. This is an old storefront. It used to be Skifton's department store, which was coincidentally owned by my great aunt and uncle, which doesn't have anything to do with us being there now, but I remember going there as a kid. It was built in 1902. Thankfully, our landlord keeps it up, but it's still an old building and was not designed to be an owl center. And then we have our aviaries that are 5 miles out of town. So we have a few sets of those that were built between 2010 and 2017. We did have what we called the Owl House. This is an old house that was on our building site where our future center is going to go. Wasn't suitable for renting, so we just used it for extreme weather housing for our birds and for our online programs. That's no longer an option as that is being removed right now. So we're back down to 2 locations instead of 3 locations, which is sort of a blessing and a curse both. Our admissions continue to increase. Obviously, during 2020, we took a massive hit, but we've built up to before COVID level numbers and are, continuing to increase from there. We don't have a parking lot. People have to park in the street. People think the parking lot next to our building is ours. It's actually the bank's. And thankfully, the bank doesn't complain that our visitors park in their parking lot all the time. So at the new center, we'll actually have a parking lot. Go figure. We have 1 program space, and it is not big enough for some groups and some days. At the new center, we will have 2 program spaces that are side by side. So we can have 1 program space for special groups, so schools and other groups that are coming in, 1 for the public, and they'll have one of those folding accordion doors between them, fairly soundproof. So we can have 2 programs going on at the same time. And then when we have the Owl Festival or International Owl Awareness Day, we can unfold that. So we have 1 huge program space that'll seat almost, trying to think how many, it'll be close to 200 people or so. So we have that flexibility of a smaller program space, a medium program space, or a big one as needed. Right now, we're only open to the public Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday because we've only got 1 program space. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the only days that we can do group programs on site. When we have the new center with the 2 program rooms, then we're able to be open 7 days a week and have group programs during those times also. Now, toilets, big deal for us. We have 1 restroom. It has 1 toilet, and the plumbing is a bit fussy because, as I mentioned, the house is from the building's from 1902. Since we've been in the building, that building settled enough to disconnect itself from the city sewer. So for a month, we didn't have any toilet facilities. We only had outhouses. So we're very thankful we have our 1 toilet, but it's an 80-foot run from the toilet to the sewer line. And when they fixed it, they gave it as much pitch as they could. But since most of the water usage in the building is 1 low flow toilet, it's still prone to plugging. So what we have to do to make sure our toilet keeps functional is at the end of every day in the commercial kitchen, which we use as our shipping department, we fill up all 3 sinks completely filled with water and then whoosh it out all at once to flush everything out of the sewer line so it doesn't plug. Now, mind you, we can't do this when the birds are here because this is right behind the wall where the owls are, and it totally freaks Ruby out if we run water in the sinks when she's here. So I have to leave with the birds before one of the other staff can fill the sinks and flush them out. Now, on really busy days, sometimes we need to flush them in the middle of the day to make sure that the sewer line doesn't plug, and we actually have to take Ruby out of the building so we can fill up the sinks and flush it out. Now, we tried to be smart and fill up the sinks beforehand, but they leak just enough that by midday when we need to flush them, there's no water left in the sinks. So this is one of the things we have to do that most people don't realize just to keep the building functional. So I can't ever stay at work late without forcing other staff to stay late so that they can flush the sewer line. So when people ask us what are staff most excited about at the new center, toilets. We are most excited that there will be adequate toilet facilities for the public. There will also be a toilet right off the gift shop for all those people that have driven 3 hours and they just got here and they have to go to the bathroom now. There will be a bathroom right there. And there will be a staff bathroom. So we can go whenever we need to go, which would be so delightful. It will even have a shower in it. So when we're out cleaning aviaries and get all hot and stinky or get pooped on by owls, which can and does happen, we actually have a shower that we can use here. So we're extremely excited about bathrooms. Our current facility has one acoustic space. So literally the only room that has a door you can close and shut on it is the bathroom. So clearly I can't use that for doing online programs. If a program is going on and the phone rings, everybody gets to hear that. I try to not use the phone. I try to not have meetings when there's programs going on because there's literally just one acoustic space. Not ideal. So obviously in the new center, we'll have separate offices and other spaces so the programs don't disrupt and other things don't disrupt programs. Online programs, we're at the Owl House. Now back to my living room again, which we have a small house and my husband doesn't always appreciate being told that he has to be quiet and has to sit somewhere else because this is where he likes to sit. But I mean, we just don't really have much for alternatives until we get the new center built. The new center obviously is going to have a dedicated online program room with an IT closet. Yes. And it'll have good acoustics and good lighting in there. It'll be magnificent. So right now, when I'm going to do an online program, there's literally about 10 to 15 minutes of setup and then 10 to 15 minutes of cleanup afterwards. Here, you can just walk in, hook up the computer, boom, you're ready to go. It will be fantastic. And our birds wind up working really hard because we just have the one set of program birds and they also have to serve as the display birds also. Ruby does best doing offsite programs. She's our great horned owl, so she winds up doing offsite programs, especially during school and library season, during spring and summer. So at the new center, we will have display only aviaries. So these are birds that are on display, more likely to be able to use non-releasable owls that are wild hatched. And those birds won't be handled other than for health checks or things like that. They'll just live in these large aviaries. You can watch them without them being handled and stressed out. And then our program birds are in their own separate space off display from the public. So the birds have to commute to work because obviously a brick building in the middle of town with little spaces for each owl is not appropriate for them to live in. So they live in those aviaries 5 miles out of town. They have to commute every day. And those of you who follow us know that the Owlmobile just got rewrapped. It desperately needed that. It's not quite done yet. We still need the new bug shield on it and Owlmobile put on the hood. But that's how they get to and from work. I spend literally about 200 hours a year just loading up and hauling owls back and forth. Imagine how much other work I could actually get done if I didn't have to haul owls. Now, hauling owls also leaves the option of certain owls saying, yeah, I'm not going to work today. So Bee the burrowing owl's a little bit famous for that. She's kind of has been 1 to 2 days a week, although she did 3 days this weekend. And she mostly only will load up and haul for Joe, not the other staff. Piper the barn owl, nobody else can handle her. So if I'm not there, she can't go to work because it's not safe for other staff to go in her aviary. Uhu the Eurasian eagle owl, she's just decided, no, I'm not going in my transport box anymore. So she's kind of on strike until we get the new center built. So this commuting thing is kind of cute, but takes a lot of time and results in birds not coming to work sometimes. So at the new center, they're going to live on site. Everybody's got their own aviary. We won't have to worry about hauling them back and forth. Way less stress for the birds, way less stress for staff, less time for staff, way better all the way around. Now, the future site of the new Owl Center. Some people thought it was in that garage. Nope, that's just the location. It's the site, not the building. If you've been to Houston before, if you're coming in from the north on Highway 76, you're coming in here, the main intersection is just down here. Here's the Nature Center, the Trailhead Park parking lot. This is the Root River Trail over here. This is the levee around Houston. We've got the wetland with a walking trail around it. We've got the 1 acre natural playground down here, tent camping. It's just a perfect location to put it. So where the main building site is, our main building site, there are 5 houses there. We knew it was an ideal location, but we would never have considered it unless people were willing to sell without any pressure. And everybody indicated early on they would be, just in their own timeline. So we were able to purchase those 5 houses with your donations, thank you, between 2013 and 2020. And then the parkland, we've been working with the city for quite a few years. There were a whole bunch of snags with that one. And that finally came through. So that is officially in our name now also. What we did since we bought the first one way back in 2013, to try and keep things fairly cash neutral, we rented the houses out as long as they were still suitable for it. Now, these houses were all quite old and not in the best of condition. So we rented them until it was like, it's not worth fixing this up anymore. And then we would demolish them. But when we did demo, the first thing we would do is reclaim as much as possible. So we would have Habitat for Humanity come in and take tons of stuff out, gave other things to nonprofits and other individuals. So it was all about reclaiming and reusing as much as possible first, then testing and doing asbestos abatement. And then one of the other aspects that's been added in, because we want to pursue the option for federal funding, is doing historical and archaeological review on the site also. So 2019, we took down that house. 2021, we took down that house, although the garage that was attached, the whole thing was taken by Habitat for Humanity. That little house went down in 2022. This huge garage went down. That was the first of the ones to go this year. That garage was taken and repurposed into 2 different deer blinds. That garage was taken intact to be another moved off-site to serve as a garage. That house is now standing in a pile, waiting to go in dumpsters to the demolition landfill. And then the last house will hopefully go down within a couple of weeks. So here's what it looks like right now. Huge pile of concrete. The concrete all gets, our demo contractor has it all ground up. So it basically is reused as gravel again. Anything with rebar gets used as fill because that can't get ground up again. But and there's a lot of concrete, is getting ground up to be repurposed as gravel. And you can see the house that's been squished and is standing there waiting to go in dumpsters. And then this one that's still standing is the former Owl House that will go down. That one had attic vermiculite in it, which has this whole asbestos thing. And yeah, so look up the Libby mine in Montana. That vermiculite was contaminated. There's a trust fund that pays 55% of the cost of removing it, but just taking out the attic vermiculite and the insulation blown in on top is $10,000. But we have to do the right thing. So that's what's taking so long on that last house. Okay, who are we working with? We hired Weiser Brothers General Contractors to do this as a design build project. And the way they do design build is they allow us to help pick the architect for the project. And we decided to go with DSGW Architecture out of the Twin Cities and Duluth. And so we've been working with them for a couple of years. So we've been engaging the staff, the board, and other community members in the planning for the new center. This is how it lays out. So again, here's Highway 76 on the right side over here. This is the band shell. To the left here is Trailhead Park parking lot and the Nature Center. Here's the bike trail going off here and the levee up on the top. So we'll have a parking lot right off of Plum Street. The main building will be here. Then we have to have this walkway that spans a drainage ditch that runs through the park down to really, really cool, big, large walk-through aviaries that I'll talk a little bit more about after a bit. Here's the floor plan of the building. This took forever to get to the point where we were all happy with it. There was just so many things to consider. This had to be close to this, which had to be close to this, which had to be close to this, which couldn't be near this. So it was a whole lot of back and forth between the architect sending us something, us literally chopping up the plan and taking a photo and saying, can you do this? Or photoshopping different things. And it took a long time, but we are very happy with how this laid out. So visitors are going to come in through the main entrance into the gift shop. And then from there, you can go to the right. So the interpretive space is where we have the educational exhibits. So it's kind of not a huge part of the building and it's not a dedicated room. It's just off to the side. Smack dab in the middle, we have our prep room. So this is where we're cutting up the food and the rats and gutting the mice and things like that to prepare for the owls. So you can actually watch that if you want to, or if we're doing specimen prep or other things. So depending on what we're doing, we may have the windows viewable, or we may have shades pulled if it needs to be something done privately. And then we have these two-part aviaries here that you'll view from the inside of the building. These two-part aviaries are for birds that need climate control. So think of things like great gray owls, snowy owls, spectacled owls, burrowing owls, things that either need heat in the winter or air conditioning in the summer. So that bird will be able to go as they wish between the two parts of the aviary. You'll be able to see them from either side, and they can choose, do I want to be in the air conditioning? Well, if you're a snowy owl and it's the middle of summer and it's a hot day, yeah, you probably want to be in the air conditioning. But what if you have a cool evening? Maybe you want to be out in it. Maybe you want to sit in the sunlight in the morning. Owls make choices that make no sense to us sometimes. Alice the great horned owl has this option, and sometimes when it's 20 below zero, she will choose to go outside. So it's nicer to give the birds the option to do what they want to do rather than putting them in a situation and them not being able to make choices about their climate control. So this is specifically for birds that need supplemental heat or supplemental cooling in the summer, or would do best with it. Now, obviously, we have storage in here. The kids' room will have interactive exhibits specifically for kids. And then this evening room, this is going to be fun. So this will be a mostly darkened room, not completely dark, but very dark, where you walk in and a motion sensor, when you cross a certain point, will trip a light that shines on a mounted owl of, say it's a barred owl, and the sound of a barred owl will play. So it's kind of like you're walking through the woods at night. Oh, there's a barred owl, and then you hear it. But it won't just broadcast everywhere. It'll be kind of a sound shower that focuses the sound down where you're standing. And then you walk to the next trigger, and then another light will come on a different owl. You'll hear that owl species. And as you go through the room, you'll experience several different species. And then we can rotate and change which species we have over time there. Then from the gift shop, if you go to the left, those will be the two program rooms that we talked about. Right across from the program rooms, we're going to have what we call a calming room. So this is for kids who or adults for that matter, that need a quiet space to go, to calm down and relax. There'll be separate little sections in there, so nursing mothers can use that room also. And the goal is to have a live stream of the program going on in that room, so you're not missing the program by going into that space. One of our board members is an IT guy, so we're not having an IT closet, we're having an IT room. So they actually have space to do what they need to do. A large mechanical room, because we're planning to have both solar and geothermal. So there's a lot of things that need to go with that. Electrical, housekeeping, storage. over here, we have a separate entrance for students. So when students come to the Owl Center, we've found out generally you don't want them to walk through the gift shop because the teachers keep saying, don't touch that, put that down. No, we're not buying anything. Don't touch, don't put that. And all the little plush is too irresistible, and it's just painful to try to get them through the gift shop. So we'll have a separate entrance where they can hang their coats and leave their boots if needed, and they can go right to the program space from there without going through the gift shop. The other thing this student vestibule gives us the option for is if somewhere down the line we say, you know, we're at a space where we would feel comfortable renting out these program spaces or the conference room for that matter to public groups in the evening when we're not open. So they could come in that way, and all we need to do is have a door right here, and they would have access to the bathrooms, access to the program rooms and or conference room, but no access to birds or any places we wouldn't want them to. So that gives us another revenue stream potentially if we would like to use that in the future. And then these are the staff areas here. We have offices are basically long and skinny, right along where the program birds are. So these are the birds that get used in programs, whether on-site, off-site, or online. And they're right next to all the program spaces. So they're, whoops, back up. They're right across the offices from both program rooms, so you can enter either one at any time. They're right next to the online program room, and they're right next to the garage where the Owlmobile parks so that they can do offsite programs. And the offices, very purposely, will have windows that look directly into those program bird aviaries, and that's to keep the human and the owl staff very well socialized with each other. Staff will also have a break room. That's where the staff bathroom is. So staff is very excited about that. So that's kind of how the main building lays out. Here's what it looks like from an aerial view. This shows solar panels on the roof. We aren't necessarily committed to having them on the roof. They may be on the ground, but regardless, we want to have solar. So that exact location is still up for grabs. You'll see there are fences around here. We don't know what the fences are going to look like, but this is to give these birds privacy. So the birds basically have a vegetative buffer between the public and them, because you're not going to be viewing them from outside, you'll be viewing them from inside. And this way the owls can look out of their aviary and basically see nature in front of them. And we'd like to use those fences as places to put additional educational signage on the fences. So that's something we can change and something that everybody can see whether they've paid admission or not. Also, you'll see all kinds of vegetation here. The goal is to have no mowed lawn at all. Owls don't like lawn mowers. We don't want to have to mow lawn. So the goal is to have all native plantings, which is better for wildlife, attracts more wildlife, and gives more interesting things for our captive owls to watch. And it's just better for the environment anyway. Now, down in the park, this is where we're going to have these really big walkthrough aviaries. So this is kind of a pioneering concept for the US. The idea of a walkthrough owl aviary was pioneered in the 1980s by Wolfgang Scherzinger in Germany. And when I first heard about it, I'm like, you can't have people walking through an owl aviary, like they could hurt people. But he understood owl behavior well enough that these are designed using owl instincts, so the owls won't want to come where the people are. So there's a whole lot of really key design points that go into this. And he's actually consulting with us on the design of these aviaries to make sure we get everything incorporated properly. He also was involved in our talks with the USDA, US Fish and Wildlife Service, and Minnesota DNR, because since nobody has done this in the US, this is something we have to get licensed, and we have to make sure that the permitting authorities will license these aviaries because it's a new concept. And basically, you as a member of the public will walk through, or even staff for that matter, will walk through these covered walkways to the aviaries. And the reason they're covered is because insects And this site can have a lot of biting insects because there's a wetland nearby. Can transmit West Nile virus and other diseases to the birds that can be lethal. We don't want that to happen. And you know what? We as humans don't like being bitten by mosquitoes and black flies either. And I can attest from having worked on this site, they can be terrible on this site. So those walkways will be enclosed. Think of like a screen porch. It'll have a roof on it and mostly screening on the sides so that you've got air moving around. So, and it's not like a little greenhouse in there, or it's not a tunnel that you're walking through that's dark, but it'll be like a breezeway that you're walking through. So as we go through the aviaries, we're not bringing in insects and the people aren't getting stung by them either. These large, there's 3 different sizes of aviaries. The big one is over 100 feet wide, to give you an idea of how huge these are. They'll have natural vegetation in them. Part of the roof will be solid to provide shade for the birds. Part of the roof will be solid and clear to provide sunlight in winter when they need to have a little shelter but still need the sunlight. And a significant portion of the roof will just be screened. So it keeps the insects out, but the owls can choose if they want to sit in the rain if they want to. So this is what it looks like from the owls part. It won't look exactly like this, but the goal is to have trees, whether they're real trees, fake trees, or dead trees with branches sticking off of them, but other live vegetation in there also. But they're very large. The owls that go in these aviaries cannot be human imprints. They have to be owls that know they're owls so that they don't want to go where the people are. So if you have people over here and you're an owl and you know you're owl, you want to be as far away and as high up as you can be. So you give them high up perches towards the back of it. You slope the roof down towards the people, which we'll see better in a different picture. So they just literally don't want to go where the people are. And they have plenty of natural space to be in and fly around in. From the human side, this is where you stand, looking in basically what looks like a viewing window, but it's wide open. There's nothing there between you and the owls. Now we'll have mesh that we can pull down at night, or if there's behavioral issues, or during breeding season, if birds get snarky or whatever. So as a safety measure, we'll have the ability to pull down something or pull across, or however we set that up. But basically, you should be able to view them with nothing between you and the birds. Now, we don't just let the public go through there on their own because people do stupid things. And that's generally not good for owls. And we don't want that to happen. Plus, our goal is to provide education, not just say, oh, look, there's an owl. So we will have people, whether that be staff or volunteers, leading groups through this, and then talking about the owls in each aviary. So they're doing 2 things. They're making sure people aren't doing stupid stuff, and they're telling you about the birds, and you can get your questions answered. So it's better from both perspectives that way. So here's kind of a cross section. This would actually have a steeper slope to the roof. The people don't need to have that much headroom there. And giving it a steeper slope makes it less likely that the owls are going to want to come where the people are also. Now, this is a video walkthrough, and I have to change a couple settings here quick so that this doesn't get all herky-jerky. I have to optimize it for video, and then I have to hide my little bar here because you're going to see a gray thing. Meeting controls. Okay. So this kind of gives you a spinning overview of the outside. So you've got the walkthrough aviaries down in the park, the main building up where the other buildings were. This makes it look like the breezeway is glass. It is absolutely not going to be glass. Think of that as screen. You can see the solar on the roof. There's not that many windows because we're looking at energy efficiency on the north side of the building. You don't want to have a lot of buildings. You can see the program aviaries on the left, the 2-part aviaries on the right, and a giant sculpture of Alice the Great Horned Owl will greet you as you come in. Come in through the gift shop, and we just have placeholders. We have kids' art on the walls. We'll have a lot displayed, but that's not the only thing we're going to have displayed. Prep room is straight in front of you, kids room on the left, and then the evening room right there. Now we're looking into the two-part aviaries, the inside and outside portions. And then the educational displays will be over here. That's just a placeholder. Walk back down the hall towards the program rooms on the left. And this is showing it with that wall, that removable wall open into one large space. And then you can go into this is the offices, looking directly into the aviaries. And then you can pop into the other room from the offices also, if that wall is closed between the classrooms. And there's the calming room right across from the program rooms. That's the IT room on the left, bathrooms on the right, conference room on the left. And now this is going down into that covered walkway or the breezeway that has to, it's long because it has to cross the drainage ditch before we can get to where those large walk-through aviaries are. Long walk. And then this will just take you through a couple of them to give you a rough idea. So there'll be either a bypass or you can go into the space. They won't be that densely vegetated, but there'll be vegetation in these aviaries. And then what's not shown in here is there'll be interior doors. So the owls don't have the option of flying into each other's aviaries. And so here's a second one, and there'll be 6 of these. Those would be for the 6 species that are native here and adapted to our climate. Now, let me see if I can get my menu bar back. No longer optimized for video. Okay. There we go. So once we have a bigger building and more staff, then we can look at doing some new programming things too. So one of the things I really want to do is create owl working groups like they have in the Netherlands. My husband's from the Netherlands. So it'd be similar to like the new North American Bluebird Society or the Purple Martin Society, where you have groups of people in an area who are putting up nest boxes, monitoring them, things like that, gathering data and sharing that. Like, why are we not doing that with owls? Everybody would love to do that. It just takes a lot of coordination. And I'd like to look at doing that. Another thing I'd like to do is develop better community science survey protocols for owls. Because we've been doing all this acoustic monitoring, we have year-round recordings all night of owls. So we could go through those and see when are screech owls calling the most, just on their own, when are great horned owls calling the most, when are barred owls calling the most, so that when people are doing citizen science monitoring or community science monitoring of owls, we would know to say, oh, you're going to monitor for screech owls in August, because in mid to late August, at least in this region, they're calling a lot. And then that's probably adjusted, based on your latitude. So that you have the best possible chance of encountering them without doing active calling, because active calling can skew your results. So you want to do passive calling, but you also want to do it when your likelihood is the highest of getting results. So that's something we could do. So first it's combing through the data, and then it would be gathering volunteers to do the citizen science or the community science monitoring. So moving forward, we need to complete our capital campaign. So that's kind of our main focus right now, is finishing the fundraising. Then we have to develop the construction plans, because right now we have concepts, but we don't have the building plans. And then build the new owl center. So our builder is telling us that it will take about a year from the time we start building till the time we finish building, assuming everything goes right. So how can you help create a better future for captive and wild owls and the visitors and staff here? Make a donation. So a whole bunch of you have already done that. Thank you very, very much. And there's a lot of ways you can do it. A very popular one for people who are at least 70 and a half is to make a qualified charitable distribution from your IRA. So it comes directly to the Owl Center and you never have to pay tax on it. Giving a gift of stock or mutual funds, that has been popular also. We have an account with Baird, so you can directly transfer it to us. We've gotten a few of those this year, very awesome. The nice thing about that is if you have stock you've held a while that has appreciated significantly, you get to take a tax deduction for the whole value of the stock, even though you haven't paid taxes on the appreciated value of the stock. So that's a really good bang for your buck if you have appreciated stock. You can leave a gift in your will or trust. And we've gotten a couple of gifts from wills, significant ones this year. So we would like to have you around, but nobody's going to be around forever. So we really appreciate those people who have remembered us in their wills and trusts. You can name the OWL Center as a beneficiary of an IRA or a 401k or insurance policy. We've had some people do that. If you're a farmer, you can literally directly donate a load of corn or beans. You take it into the elevator and you sell it in the OWL Center's name. You don't pay tax on it. The income comes directly to the OWL Center. And because we're nonprofit, we don't have to pay tax on it. So that's a very creative way to do things. If you have an employer matching program, get your employer to donate also and match your donations. We have several people doing that. Awesome. And another thing everybody can do is tell other people. There's still a lot of people that don't know the OWL Center exists, and they certainly don't know how cool this new facility is going to be. So telling others helps us a ton also. Because this is a gigantic project, we're breaking it down into more bite-sized pieces. So we're having sponsorship opportunities for the different aviaries and different rooms, the building exterior, the covered walkway. So there's different things you can sponsor, and a lot of them have been snapped up already. Kids' room went right away. We've got a probable sponsor on the IT room. The prep room is already gone. My dad sponsored the director's office, so that's really cool. We have a tentative sponsorship on a program bird aviary. We have a solidified sponsorship on a 2-part aviary. So if you do want to do one of these, talk to us soon, because once these things are gone, they're gone. So, and if you want your name on the outside of the building, it's a $7.5 million sponsorship. So the whole project is projected to be $17.3 million. It can be broken into 2 parts. So the main building is about 15 million, and then those giant walk-through aviaries, they're thinking about 2.5 million. So it's a huge project, kind of crazy big for a town this size, but I honestly believe there's enough people that care about owls. We can do this, and it's going to be awesome. So the walk-through aviaries also can be sponsored, and as I mentioned, the walkway also can be sponsored. So we hope you'll join us in giving a hoot for Project Hoot and helping to make this new center happen. So now I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to jump into questions. If you have questions, type them in the Q&A and I will work through these. So we have a question. Do we have an opening date? Nope. Totally depends on how fast the fundraising goes. And then how long it takes. They said it will take maybe 6 months or so to do the construction plans and then about a year to build. But we want to have the money all pledged, and you can do up to a 5-year pledge so that we can maximize everybody's giving ability. And the way we will fund that, My Energy, our local energy cooperative through Dairyland Power, can get a USDA Rural Development Grant loan for up to $2 million. That's 0% interest for 10 years. And if we get that, then that basically finances us while the pledges are coming in so that we can maximize the giving. But we want to have it all pledged first, because trying to raise money for a building that's already built is really hard. Who will be doing all the IT work, specifically the evening room? Probably we've got a couple of volunteers that are amazing. So Rob Whitner is one of our board members who's a software engineer and can kind of do anything technologically. And Alan Stankovitz has also been a magnificent tech volunteer for us. So I think we've got people who can manage this stuff without a problem. Mark these answered. What about adding taxidermied animals to the open aviary? Deer, skunk, porcupine, badger, depending upon owl species and their natural environment. I would think it would be entertaining and visually stimulating to the visitors as well as the owls. Well, that'd be an interesting thing to consider. And we probably could consider it, but we also would have to consider that they'd be exposed to the elements, and I don't know how well they would hold up to the elements. I know some places sometimes will have small mammals in aviaries. You know, if you've got the wrong thing, sometimes those animals get eaten by the live animals. And if you have a taxidermy thing that is on the menu, then it might also try to get eaten also, and that wouldn't be healthy for the owls. But that's an interesting thing to consider. How many owls do you currently have, and are you planning on acquiring more owls? We have 8 right now. So 2 are retired. Alice, the great horned owl, doesn't have to work at all. Iris, the great horned owl, is technically retired, although we still live stream her. So it depends on which permitting authority you talk to. As far as U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and DNR are considered, Iris is retired. According to USDA, she's not retired because she's still being live streamed. Whatever. She will not move to the new site. She needs to be away from people and have her quiet space. So the current facilities for aviaries is where the retired birds will stay, and birds that need quarantine or special treatment or things like that. So the current aviaries also serve a long-term need. So we have 8 owls right now, 5 of them go to work. And when we have the new facility, the goal for the program birds is to have them housed singly, so they focus on humans. But the display birds, the goal would be to house them in male-female pairs so that they can have that natural pair bond. We're not allowed to let them breed because of state regulations, but we can allow them to go through the breeding process and swap the eggs for fake eggs, like we did with Iris for a while. And then they can at least go through that much of their natural process. But if we have male, female in all of the display aviaries and then singles in all the programs, we would have 28 birds. So 8 versus 28, a whole lot more. Who do we speak to at the Owl Center about giving a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution? Me. So you can call, I'll be back later this afternoon, or you can shoot me an email. It's Carla with a K at internationalowlcenter.org. Or if you go on to the About Us section of our menu and then the staff and board page, you'll find my email address there also. Thank you. Will the building and aviaries be in the floodplain? Very good question. Okay, this is Houston. It does flood here. We have a new levee around Houston, so everything in it is technically out of the floodplain. Now, since we've been thinking a very long time about doing this, that lower parkland where the walk-through aviaries are, that does occasionally flood to 1 degree or another. So I've always kept taking pictures of it anytime there was water there. It is officially out of the floodplain. Do we get water in there sometimes? Yes. When the worst was not in the flood of 2007, when we had 13 inches of rain in 24 hours, the worst was actually, was it like 2019? In the spring, when there was a spring thaw and there was a lot of rain, and there's pumps in the levee, they froze. And then there got to be water several feet deep there. And I had pictures of that, and we worked with the surveyor and the architect to figure out how deep that water was. So the goal is to build up the base of the aviaries and the path that we walk on so that it's, I think, about 1 foot higher than that. So even if the worst case water scenario would happen, we will not have water in the aviaries, because you don't want to have flood water in the bottom of aviaries, because flood water brings in all kinds of nasty stuff. So that has to get built up. Where the main building goes, that's totally out of the floodplain. If that floods, the whole town is gone. So we're talking, you know, like North Carolina mountain disaster level if for that to be an issue. So very good question about the floodplains, and something that we've thought very hard about. Will the Owl Center continue to have a live wild owl feed on YouTube, or be able to watch Iris or any other owl available? Good question. We'll keep streaming Iris as long as she's with us. We haven't gotten her a mate because it would be really hard to justify it, because we've officially concluded the research we were doing with her. She's retired, so there's no, you have to, owls have to have a job. So, and then if Iris passes away and then we have the other one, then what do we do? So we'll have Iris streaming as long as she's with us. And then beyond that, we probably will continue to do some streaming, whether that is a captive bird, or if we have the ability to partner with, for example, maybe Raptor Resource Project and do some wild cams. We definitely want to keep in the cam world one way or another. Will we do owl egg or owlet rescues? So we won't do rehab. Rehabilitation is a completely separate license. And in the state of Minnesota, if we wanted to rehab owls, we would have to rehab, like if I wanted to rehab a great horned owl, it doesn't matter that I have almost 30 years of experience working with great horned owls. I would have to rehab other species for something like 6 or 7 years first. I have no interest in doing that. So we're not going to do rehab. We just help get things where they need to go. So when that's young owls, very often they're out of the nest before they should be. And that's just a matter of getting them back into the nest or an artificial structure nearby so the parents can still take care of it. So that we'll continue to do, help birds get the care that they need, but we won't venture into the rehab realm of things. And as far as eggs, our captive owls, if they lay eggs, we would need to blow those out and we would save the eggs, but we can't hatch them or do anything else with them because of permits. Would people be able to take photographs in the walkthrough aviaries? Yes, absolutely. You'll be able to take photographs. And that's part of the goal, is there's literally nothing between you and the birds, so you can get a really good photo. And then we'll probably do some special programming also in the evenings, so that, you know, maybe on Friday nights, we would have an evening program where you can go out and be there after dark when the owls are calling more, or maybe when they're being fed or things like that. So we would like to do some special programming around that also, although we haven't developed what that would be yet. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other ones yet. Okay, I hope you enjoyed learning about what we're doing here and how crazy cool it's going to be and how much work it's going to be to get it all done, but it's going to be awesome. I mean, these walkthrough aviaries literally are going to set the new gold standard for owl housing in the US. I mean, they're just going to be magnificent. And basically, we are going to have to write the requirements for them, for the permit people, so they know. One of their concerns was, so we know what we're doing, but somebody else doesn't necessarily know what they're doing. What if they try and do it and they don't know all those details? So we have to write up all the criteria for what needs to happen to make them safe. So anyway, lots of stuff to do. It's going to be awesome when it happens. I appreciate all of your support as volunteers, as donors. Many of you are both. And I just want to highlight a few things we have coming up. So I think many of you have probably heard about this new book that just came out called Owl Music. I want to have like neon lights pointing at it, because this is not just any book. This is like amazing. It's written for kids, but this is equally for adults. It's absolutely fantastic. And It's listed as the author Plumo del Búho, which is feather or pen of the owl in Spanish. Cat is the name of the author. He's going to be doing a reading for us as a free webinar on December 8th. And we were just doing some talking, and the illustrator and some of the other people who were part of the team putting the book together may be part of that webinar too. So it should be really cool. This is the kind of book where I was sitting there going, oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice. This is a nice story. That's nice illustrations. And then there was one page where you just went, oh my gosh, the message here, and my eyes teared up. And I had some visitors read it just the other day. They had Kleenex out. I mean, it is just profound. It's awesome. So definitely catch that. That webinar will not be saved and recorded. This one will be saved and you can watch it later. The reading of owl music will be live only. December 14th, we have an Owl Prowl. And then we're going to be doing our neighbor weekends. So for Iowa residents of Allamakee and Winship counties, they get in free the weekend of December 21st, so 21st, 22nd. January 4th and 5th, Minnesota neighbor weekend. So people from Winona, Fillmore, and Houston County get in free January 4th and 5th. For those of you who follow the webinars, February 2nd, we're going to be having a panel webinar about Flacco, the Eurasian eagle owl from Central Park, who was cut out of his enclosure there. David Lay, the main person who followed Flacco, will be part of that. Marianne Savelsberg, our volunteer from the Netherlands, who's an expert on eagle owl vocalizations and behavior, will be there giving input. Lisa Owens-Vianney, who's the head of RATS, Raptors Are the Solution, will be there talking about rodenticides. I'll be talking a little bit about owl housing. It should be really cool. And International Festival of Owls, March 7th to the 9th. Put it on your calendar so you can get planned for that. We should have Scott Rashid from Colorado here as our Champion of Owls, World Owl Hall of Fame Award winner. Rudolf Schaff from Germany is one of our other winners. He cannot come in person, but we're working on trying to get a live video feed so he can do a presentation live. And fingers crossed, if everything goes well with visas, Raju Akaria from Nepal should be coming back. Again, a few of you met him, well, I think in 2012 or something way back then. He's doing amazing work in Nepal. So thank you all for your support of the International Owl Center and owls, owl education, owl research, and all you do to promote owls. Thanks, and we'll talk to you later.